Very good morning, students. I hope you are doing well. Today we are going to study class 9th Beehive book chapter 7 packing. This is written by Jerome K Jerome and this is an extract from Three Men in a Boat. That is a famous novel. Let us see the brief introduction of this chapter. Jerome, who is the narrator, felt pride on his packing. Three friends decided to go on a holiday. He offered to do packing. George and Harris, his friends, were impressed by that. They relaxed by lighting a cigar and pipe respectively. That the narrator would do the packing. What happened while they were packing? Are they good packers? Let us read this chapter and find out. Let us see the explanation. I said I would pack. I rather pride myself on my packing. Packing is one of those many things that I feel I know more about than any other person living. It surprises me myself sometimes how many such things there are. I impressed the fact upon George and Harris and told them that they had better leave the whole matter entirely to me. They fell into the suggestion with a readiness that had something uncanny about it. George spread himself over the easy chair and Harris cocked his legs on the table. Let us see the explanation. The writer Let us see the word meaning. Pride myself on, am pride of. Fell into means accepted. Uncanny means strange, weird. Cocked his legs means bent the legs on the knee as he sat. Let us see the explanation. The writer Jerome liked to pack luggage for tips and announced that he would do the packing. Jerome thought that this ability to pack luggage was better than others. He asked his friends George and Harris to leave the task of packing to him. The two friends agreed to his offer instantly, which was strange. George sat comfortably on the easy chair and Harris bent the knees as he sat on the sofa and kept his feet on the table. This was hardly what I listened. What I had meant, of course, was that I should boss the job and that Harris and George should potter about under my direction. I pushing them aside every now and then with, oh, you, here, let me do it. There you are, simple enough. Really teaching them, as you might say, that they're taking it in the way they did irritated me. There is nothing does irritate me more than seeing other people sitting about doing nothing when I am working. Intended means planned, meant. Potter about means do some unimportant thing. Let us see the explanation. By saying that he would pack, the writer did not mean that his friends would sit and relax while he would do all the work. He had meant that he would boss upon them while they would do all the chores. He would nag them and curse them for not doing the work well, and then he would chip in to sort out the mess and they would create. He was irritated to see them sitting while he did all the work. I lived with a man once who used to make me mad that way. He would loll on the sofa and watch me doing things by the hour together. He said it did him real good to look on at me, messing about. Now I'm not like that. I can't sit still and see another man slaving and working. I want to get up and superintend and walk around with my hands in my pockets and tell him what to do. It is my energetic nature. I can't help it. Loll on the sofa means to recline or lean in a relaxed manner. Messing about means to waste time doing something without a particular purpose. Let us see the explanation. He recollects that once he lived with a man who would sit lazily on the sofa all day through and would watch the writer to do all the work. The man would say that he enjoyed watching him go around, doing all the work. This would make the writer mad with anger. The writer adds that he could not sit idle and watch others work like slaves. On the other hand, he liked to check their work, walk around with with his hands in his pockets and direct them on how to do the work properly. He feels that as he was energetic, it was a part of his nature to behave in that manner. However, I did not say anything, but started the packing. It seemed a longer job than I had thought it was going to be. But I got the bag, finished at last, and I sat on it and strapped it. Ain't you going to put the boots in? Said Harris. And I looked around and found I had forgotten them. That is just like Harris. He couldn't have said a word until I have got the bag shut and strapped. Of course, and George laughed. One of those irritating, senseless laughs of his. They do make me so wild. Stabbed it means closed it. Wild means mad with anger. Let us see the explanation. The writer did not say anything to his friends and started packing. As he closed it, Harry said that he had forgotten to pack the boots. The writer felt that Harris could have reminded him before he had closed the bag, but he thought that Harris was like that. This was followed by an irritating laughter by George, which made Jerome wild with anger. I opened the bag and packed the boots in it, and then, just as I was going to close it, a horrible idea occurred to me. Had I packed my toothbrush? I do not know how it is, but I never do know whether I have packed my toothbrush. Jerome opened the bag to keep the boots in. As he was about to close it, he was struck by a strange thought that had he kept the toothbrush or not. He says that he never remembers if he has packed the toothbrush or not. My toothbrush is a thing that haunts me when I am traveling and makes my life a misery. I dream that I haven't packed it and wake up in a cold perspiration and get out of bed and hunt for it. And in the morning, I pack it before I have used it and have to unpack again to get it. And it is always the last thing I turn out of the bag. And then I repack and forget it and have to rush upstairs for it at the last moment and carry it to the railway station wrapped up in my pocket handkerchief. Haunts means to repeatedly give trouble. Misery means sad. Cold perspiration means sweat. Hunt means search. Jerome adds that while traveling, he always messes up with carrying his toothbrush. He has nightmares of not having packed it, wakes up in sweat, and looks for it. In the morning, he packs it before using it, then unpacks the bag to get the brush and uses it, as it is the last thing that comes out of the bag and he has repacked the bag. He forgets packing it again. At the last moment, he rushes to his room to get the brush and finally he wraps it in his handkerchief and carries it to the railway station in his hand. Of course, I had to turn every mortal thing out now, and of course, I could not find it. I rummaged the things up into much the same state that they must have been before the world was created. And when chaos reigned, of course, I found George and Harris 18 times over, but I could not find my own. I put the things back one by one and held everything up and shook it. Then I found it inside a boot. I repacked once more. Let us see the word meaning. Mortal thing means every ordinary thing. Rummaged means searched in a hurried or careless way. Chaos means confusion or reigned means ruled. Let us see the explanation. As Jerome was looking for his toothbrush in his bag, he had to remove everything, but he could not find it. He created a mess. He found his friend's brushes many times, but could not find his own toothbrush. He kept everything back into the bag one by one, shaking each item, and finally found the brush inside a boot. Then once again he repacked the bag. When I had finished, George asked if the soap was in. I said I did not care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't. And I slammed the bag shut and stabbed it. And found that I had packed my spectacles in it and had to reopen it. It got shut up finally at 10:05 p.m. And then there remained the hampers to do. Harris said that we should be wanting to start in less than 12 hours time and thought that he and George had better do the rest. And I agreed and sat down and they had a go. Didn't care a hang means show no concern or interest. Slammed means shut the lid forcefully and loudly. Hampers means baskets used to carry food, utensils, etc. Now, when Jerome closed the bag, George asked if the soap was there inside it. As Jerome was impatient, he replied that he wasn't concerned if it was there or not, closed the lid and stepped the bag. Then he realized that he had packed his spectacle in it too and had to open it again to get them. Finally, the bag was closed at 10:05 p.m. Then they had to pack the food baskets. Harry said that as they were left with less than 12 hours to leave, they should pack the baskets as well. Harris decided that the food baskets would be packed by him and George. Jerome agreed to take his turn for some rest while his fathers packed the bas- while his friends packed the basket. They began in a light-hearted spirit, evidently intending to show me how to do it. I made no comment. I only waited. With the exception of George, Harris is the worst baker in this world. And I looked at the piles of plates and cups and kettles and bottles and jars and pies and stoves, cakes and tomatoes, etc. and felt that the thing would soon become exciting. Light-hearted spirit means to be cheerful. Evidently means clearly, obviously. Exception means a person or thing that does not follow the general rule. George and Harry started packing the hampers in a happy mood. They wanted to show Jerome that they could pack well. Jerome waited for them to create a mess because he considered Harris to be the worst packer in the world. Jerome looked at the piles of plates, cups, kettles, bottles, the jars, pies, cakes, tomatoes, which had to be packed into the hampers. He thought that as the boys would mesh up, it would be an interesting thing to watch. It did. It started with breaking a cup. That was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you what they could do and to get you interested. Then Harris packed the strawberry jam on top of a tomato and squashed it. And they had to pick out the tomato with a teaspoon. Squashed means crush or squeeze something with force so that it becomes flat, soft, or out of shape. The scene became interesting as they broke a cup at the start. Jerome says that they broke the cup to indicate that they could do that too and to make things interesting. Harris placed the jar of strawberry jam on the top of the tomatoes. The tomatoes were squeezed by the jar and then they removed the damaged tomato with the help of a spoon. And then it was Joe's turn. And that he trod on the butter. I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of the table and watched them. It irritated them more than anything I could have said. I felt that. It made them nervous and excited, and they stepped on things and put things behind them and then couldn't find them when they wanted them. And they packed the pies at the bottom and put heavy things on top and smashed the pies in. Trod on means stepped on. Next, George stepped on the butter. Jerome remained silent but sat on the edge of the table to watch the action. His silence irritated his friends. They became nervous and stepped on the things. They kept the things behind them, and later, when they wanted them, they could not find them. They placed the pies on the bottom and kept heavier things on them. which smashed the pies. They upset salt over everything. And as for the butter, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. After George had got it off his slipper, they tried to put it in the kettle. It wouldn't go in, and what was it wouldn't come out. They did scrape it out at last and put it down on a chair. And Harry sat on it, and it stuck to him, and they went looking for it all over the room. Upset means overturned. Scrap means drag or pull. The boys the boys overturned the can of salt on everything. Jerome says that they created a lot of confusion with the small piece of butter. He had not seen anyone create so much mess with butter that was worth 1 or 2 pence, meaning it was a very small piece, as they did. George removed it from his slipper and tried to put it into the kettle. As he was unable to do that, he placed it on a chair. Harry sat on it and the butter stuck to him. He stood up and both the boys went around the room looking for the piece of butter. I will take my oath I put it down on that chair, said George, staring at the empty seat. I saw you do it myself not a minute ago, said Harris. Then they started round the room again looking for it. And then they met again in the center and stared at one another. Most ordinary thing I ever heard of, said George. So mysterious, said Harris. Then George got round at the back of the Harris and saw it. Why, here it is all the time, he exclaimed indignantly. Oath means to swear upon something. Kasam khana. Indignantly means in a manner indicating anger or annoyance at the something perceived as unfair. George looked intently at the empty seat on which he had placed the butter a few minutes ago. He took an oath of truthfulness that he had placed it there not even a minute ago. Once again, they searched it in the room. They met it in the middle of the room, empty handed. George said that the disappearance of the butter was the most amazing thing that he had known. Harry said that the disappearance of butter was a mystery. George saw the butter sticking to Harry's back and said that it had been there all the time. Where? Cried Harris, spinning round. Stand still and can't you? Roared George, flying after him. And they got it off and packed it in the teapot. Montmorency was in it all, of course. Montmorency's ambition in life is to get in the way and be sworn at. If he can squirm in anywhere where he particularly is not wanted and be a perfect nuisance and make people mad and have things thrown at his head, then he feels his day has not been wasted. One at means get scolded. Squirm means to wriggle or twist one's body. जैसे कीड़े मकोड़े या सांप वगैरह अपनी बॉडी को ट्विस्ट करते हुए चलते हैं. Nuisance means to cause inconvenience or annoyance. Harris turned around and asked where it was. George flew to Harris' back and asked him to stand still. They removed the butter and packed it inside the teapot. Jerome's pet dog, Montmorency, participated in all this. His aim was to interrupt everyone and then get scolded for it. Jerome adds that if Montmorency was able to twist into a place and create nuisance by angering people and get things thrown at him, in return he felt that he had utilized the day in a good way. To get somebody to stumble over him and curse him steadily for an hour in his highest aim and object, and when he has succeeded in accomplishing this, his conduct becomes quite unbearable. He came and sat down on things just when they were wanted to be packed, and be labored under the fixed belief that whenever Harris or George reached out their hand for anything. It was his cold, damp nose that they wanted. He put his leg into the jam and he worried the teaspoons. And he pretended that the lemons were rats and got into the hamper and killed three of them before Harris could land him with the frying pan. Worried means stumble means to trip over a hurdle. Curse means called. Conject here means his pride in himself. Worried means disturbed. Pretended means to behave as if something is true when you know that it is not. Land him, hit or punch someone. Montmorency's aim was to get people trip over him and scold him. By doing this, he felt that he had fulfilled his aim and would feel proud of his achievement. Montmorency sat on the things to be packed. He thought that when George and Harris reached out for the things to be packed, they were reaching out for his cold, wet nose and would bring it forward for him. He stepped into the jam bottle and shook the teaspoon. He acted as if the lemons were rats and stepped into the hamper to kill these rats. He was stopped by Harris, who hit him with a frying pan. Harry said I encouraged him. I did not encourage him. A dog like that doesn't want any encouragement. It is the natural, original sin that is born in him that makes him do things like that. The packing was done at 12:50 and Harry sat on the big hamper and said he hoped nothing would be found broken. George said that if anything was broken, it was broken, which reflection seemed to comfort him. He also said he was ready for bed. We were all ready for bed. Harris was to sleep with us that night and we were upstairs. Reflection means thought. Harris blamed Jerome for encouraging Montmorency for doing all this mischief. Jerome said that a dog like Montmorency did not need any encouragement. It was born to be like that and act like that. At 12:50, they had packed the hampers. Harry sat on it and said that hopefully nothing would break it in it. George was indifferent and said that if something broke, it would not matter. As they were ready for bed, they went upstairs to sleep. We tossed for beds and Harris had to sleep with me. He said, do you prefer the inside or the outside? I said, I generally prefer to sleep inside a bed. Harry said it was odd. George said, what time shall I wake you fellows? Harry said 7. I said no, 6. Because I wanted to write some letters. Toast means throw something everywhere lightly or casually. Means toss करना जैसे किसके पास होएगा हैरिस तो उन्होंने टॉस किया किसकी टर्न पे है वो. As they settled in their beds, Harris asked Jerome if he preferred the inside or the outside of the bed. Jerome said that he preferred to sleep on the inside of the bed. This seemed strange to Harris. George asked them that he should wake them up at what time. Harris replied 7, while Jerome wanted to wake up at 6 as he had to write some letters. Harris and I had a bit of row over it, but at last split the difference and said 6:30. Wake us at 6:30, George, we said. George made no answer and we found on going over that he had been asleep for some time. So we placed the bath where he could tumble into on getting out in the morning and went to bed ourselves. A tumble means to fall quickly and without control. A bit of row means an argument. Split the difference means this means that they agreed on 6:30 because it was halfway between 6 and 7. Harris and George had a discussion on the time and finally they settled on 6:30, each accommodating his time by half an hour. George did not respond as he was asleep. Harris and George made mischief by placing the bathtub next to George's bed so that he would fall into out as he woke up on the Pretext that this way he would take a bath as soon as he got up. This is all students. I hope you all have understood. Thank you for watching the video.